Well, it's great to have back explorer, author, friend, I would say, tour mate, Hugh Newman. Hugh, how you doing?
I'm doing good, D. How are you doing?
Doing great. Great to be back with you, Hugh. Can barely keep up with your travels as always. You've been in Turkey of late, and there's some incredible new discoveries at Göbekli Tepe, at Karahan Tepe. Cannot wait to get into this. And hopefully, if you're watching this by YouTube or Spotify, you're going to see photo and video evidence of what we're talking about in kind of a PowerPoint presentation. So this is going to be very exciting. But first, for my audience that lives in the US, Hugh is actually coming to the great United States in early December, and you can meet him. Hugh, tell us a little bit about when and where you're coming.
Yeah, there's this really cool conference taking place 5th to the 7th of December 2025 in Scottsdale, Arizona, put on by Robert Dakota and Michael Collins of Wandering Wolf. And there's a bunch of cool speakers there. It's called the Quest for the Ancient Civilizations Conference. We've got my good friends, many good friends there, David Hatcher Childress, Jimmy Corsetti of Bright Insight. You got AJ Gentle of the Y Files. You got JJ Ainsworth, my partner, who's brilliant as well. You got Dan Richards of Debunking, Michael Button. You got Oana, who does some really good documentaries. Will Brown, and you got Gary from Nerdrotic as well. So, and there's going to be a few other people there as well. So it's going to be a cool event, really pushing the boundaries of what's going on in the ancient mysteries world. And I think it's a great time of year to actually get together, in person, because, it's quite easy to get isolated in your kind of YouTube, X, kind of Facebook worlds without kind of, actually getting to meet these researchers and like discuss these different aspects. So yeah, it'd be a cool event. Also, William Henry's there as well, by the way. So yeah, should be fun.
Yeah, this looks incredible. I mean, I love the title, Quest for Ancient Civilizations, December 5th through the 7th, Scottsdale, Arizona. Is there anywhere you'd rather be than Scottsdale, Arizona in early December? I live here in the Pacific Northwest. In early December, let me just tell you, it is dark and rainy. And so I actually might be coming down to this conference to hang with this all-star lineup. I mean, wow, what a lineup. And so looks like you can go to worldviewzmedia.com to get tickets. And Hugh, anything else to add to this?
Yeah, I'm just looking forward to getting out there, really. I'm just before that, I'm going to be in South America and Easter Island, so I'm going to have a few days off just beforehand. But yeah, I mean, there's a lot of, I've actually researched and traveled around that area before many years ago. I was actually looking at petroglyph sites, some of the Native American constructions in the area. And I often, for a few times, I've actually gone and hung out and stayed with David Hatcher Childress, who lives just down the road from there. So, yeah, it's a really cool place to be, especially at that time of year where the weather will be pretty decent.
I didn't know Hatcher Childress lives in Arizona. That's cool.
Yeah. He's got a really cool place actually. Yeah, he collects pinball machines amongst other things. Has this remarkable library there as well.
Okay, Hugh, there is some big, exciting discoveries coming out of Turkey. Tell us about it, and you've got some PowerPoint stuff to show us.
Yeah, for sure. There's quite a bit actually. The whole Tastepala region, which is the name it's been given to all the sites around Göbekli Tepe and Karahantepe. There's numerous sites now. I mean, there's not just the two main sites. There's a whole load of other places. 12 officially they're looking at, but there's actually many more. Obviously, Göbekli Tepe is the most famous one. Here is me on my first visit I ever went in 2013 with Graham Hancock and Andrew Collins. So that was a treat. So, but now it's all changed there quite a lot. But one of the big news is that just recently, just in the last few days, they've been doing a GPR scan of the site. Now, this is an old scan they did back, 2013, 2014. But they're actually now that all the controversy about the olive trees and they've all been cleared, which is something Jimmy Corsetti was involved with. They've actually kind of they're now scanning it. They're now doing like ground penetration radar, and they're actually going to hopefully be doing more excavation, hopefully on some of these giant enclosures that were still buried when this, well, still buried now, but when this was taken as well. And so, yeah, so that's kind of exciting news. So we're hoping, there's going to be some news coming out about that. There's been quite a few discoveries over the last couple of years. This is enclosure D, where they found this giant boar statue. Also, I've been looking at some alignments there, some potential winter solstice and summer solstice alignments, which I'm going to be presenting at the conference, at the Quest for Ancient Civilizations conference. But really, it's like there was a big announcement like last week about this, not the one in the middle. It's actually the one in the wall, but the one in the middle is a previous discovery where they found this humanoid statue about 3 or so feet long, embedded into one of the walls between enclosures B and D at Göbekli Tepe. And we were there when this was all happening, but we left like the day after this was all happening, or the day before rather, so we didn't actually see it. But while I was there, one of the things I noticed was that they were kind of reconstructing enclosure C. Now, this kind of, when I saw this, I was like freaking out. I thought, this is absolutely horrific. It's terrifying. It looks like they're kind of destroying the site. But in hindsight, they're actually doing this reconstruction job where they're actually rebuilding a T pillar, as you can see here. I've got some before and after images, so you can kind of get a sense of it. So you got the pillar, the big central pillar on the left. They've actually rebuilt it. They're doing this also at Karahantepe as well in the enclosure AH. So there's lots going on. In a way, it's a good thing because it's kind of cleaning things up, it's tidying it up. But one of the things that I have a slight problem with is that they're rebuilding the wall around the edge. And so this, you can see that more clearly here. And so they're actually building over parts of the archaeology they haven't really excavated properly yet. And also there's, with enclosure C, it's a double stone circle. So there's 2 circles and they're building this wall on the inner one. There's actually an outer one as well, which still needs to be fully excavated. It kind of looks like this is like the kind of reconstruction, although we don't believe the walls were there in the earliest phase. We think they're a later addition anyway. But yeah, but it's quite intriguing. So it looks kind of cool. I mean, from the back of that T pillar looks a bit messy. You can see that on the bottom left there. Yeah, but one of the things which is interesting for me, at least, is that as they've done this reconstruction, it's actually revealed the geometry that I've been looking at, which I kind of worked out like a year or 2 ago. This flattened circle modified type B, which is a specific geometry that was worked on by Alexander Thom on the British stone circles. And so that kind of inspired me, because this is like, it's kind of proving what I've been saying for a while, that they were working with very sophisticated geometric kind of calculations and even measurements as well. And so yeah, there's a lot going on. So Göbekli Tepe has got a few things happening. The main thing that this hit the news. I mean, I don't really understand why it really hit the news. I think it's because they found so little there, and they've only done excavation for 2 or 3 months this whole year. They've actually stopped it already. But the thing on the left there, this little statue is 3 feet long. To me, it's not a huge deal, so I don't really understand it. The one in the middle, this is actually one they found several years ago, and it's kind of similar to that. But the fact that it was placed in the wall is kind of intriguing. So people are saying it's some kind of votive offering, which to me doesn't quite make sense. It doesn't have any real logic to it. Maybe it was added later, because I believe these walls were added later, especially rough walls like this. I mean, and also other people have said that it's just being reused. It's just like some kind of, they found a useful size block to shove in the wall there. So there's these kind of things. But this caused a sensation. I really don't understand why, but anyway, it did. But so that's the new discovery of Göbekli Tepe. There's not much else to report on from that particular site.
Yeah, this little 3-foot statue, seeing it embedded in the wall like that reminds me of what we see on Rapa Nui, with some of the Moai heads recycled into the Ahu platforms, right? Which kind of hints to me that the platforms were built far after a lot of these Moai, and then they were grabbing blocks, and they were grabbing really eroded heads and using it as a block, building these platforms and pushing the moai back up. Seems to be pretty clear that that's what they were doing here, especially if you think those enclosures came later, right?
Well, yeah, I think so. Yeah, I mean, I'm not. I mean, I'm not 100% convinced the walls were there at the very beginning. I think they were kind of everything was much more balanced and more subtly created using the bedrock. Maybe we know they were using terrazzo concrete, like a geopolymer type thing from a very early date. So I think they were kind of the walls were very low if they were there at all, just to hold the T pillars up, and then they were built in later to kind of hold everything up because they literally cover up many of the 3D reliefs on the sides of the pillars. So why would you spend months kind of creating this beautiful T-shaped pillar with these beautiful carvings on both sides of it, and then just cover it up with a wall immediately? So there's no logic to that. So I think they must have been added later. I think that's the kind of the way to look at it, or at least question the what the archaeologists are telling us, because they say the walls were there were from the very beginning, but there's no proof of that. There's no real logic to it. However, the dating, the actual pieces of charcoal and other things they found within the walls at the very lowest levels to get the dating of the site of a roughly 9,600 BC. So does that then suggest that the original enclosures could be slightly older? They could actually be a bit older than this, and they were just working just more with the bedrock and more with the T-shaped pillars rather than building these walls.
Yeah, there's seems to be so much crazy stuff happening at Göbekli Tepe. Like you said, on one hand, because of the tree controversy, they removed the trees. Yet prior to that, they've said they don't want to excavate for like the next 100 years, fully excavate it. Yet then you say they're rebuilding walls. And then on our last interview, you were dropping the bomb how I asked you about that incredible rectangle looking artifact that was like maybe 5 or 6 feet long, and it had two precision cutouts in it, and you said they buried it. On
Yeah.
one hand, they're burying the most incredible pieces, and on the other hand, they're pulling out little 3-foot statues and letting us at least see those.
That's right. Yeah. So that's over in the sort of northwest area. Actually, that was a long time ago. They did that. It wasn't just recently. They kind of buried that as soon as they found it, pretty much. But hopefully, with this scanning they're doing of the land there, let's wait and see. Maybe they're going to kind of expose that now. I mean that is an amazing thing to see. I mean they could easily expose it, keep it under a roof, have a walkway going to it, so people can actually experience it and appreciate it. I think that's what's got to happen at these sites. There's got to be a bit more kind of access and a bit more kind of allowing people to appreciate it a little bit more. But they are doing good stuff. Don't get me wrong; they've got a lot on their plate. There's a whole bunch of other sites which we can talk about, which are just
Yeah.
about to start being excavated, or have literally just begun, like the last days or weeks. Very important ones as well. Some that could be even bigger than Göbekli Tepe. That this is what we're dealing with here. We're dealing with what I call a super civilization stretching across this entire landscape, which has been completely lost, completely buried for millennia.
Incredible. Well, let's keep on the journey here and show us what else you've uncovered recently.
Well, yeah, I've been looking more, while we're at Göbekli Tepe, I've been looking more into the geometry. You might want to bring up this
Yep.
image. This is on the left was the original geometry I was looking at from old plans of enclosure D, for instance. But in the last year, a paper came out and they published this new plan. They cleared away a lot of the rubble from around enclosure D, so you can actually see the shape of the enclosure. So I've actually determined that it's a slightly different type of geometry, and that it's on the right there. This is based upon a plan produced by the archaeologists at the site, and it's an egg shape. This is one of the classic egg shapes that was determined by Alexander Thom, but this one is a bit different. It's based upon two Pythagorean triangles, and each of these triangles is a 5, 12, 13 triangle, and that is exactly what we find, the 5, 12, 13 triangle in the design of Stonehenge in the station stone rectangle, the four outer stones that are at the site there. So we're finding similar kind of principles being played out in different parts of the world in completely different eras, because obviously this is much older than Stonehenge. We also got yeah, so this is a close-up of it here. You can see what we're dealing with here. It fits really well, and the reason I know it's that shape is because they've now cleared away so much rubble. You're actually starting to see like the curb around the edge where the T-pillars are almost slotted into. On the left side of this picture, that's enclosure D, you can see that the bedrock has been, you know, within the enclosure itself is lower than it is on the outer. So you've got this curb, you've got this ledge going around. And I believe that they were creating sockets, or they would slide the T-pillars, and that would kind of hold them up. And so I think that's what was going on in enclosure D. They've also cleared enclosure A quite thoroughly as well. And so we have this here. I think this is enclosure A. Maybe it's enclosure B, actually. Sorry, it's enclosure B. I got that wrong. This is enclosure B. And they've actually, again, I've had to adjust the geometry here because I was working on old maps and very little was clear. But now it's been cleared. You can actually see there's an egg shape there as well. Now, that's not precise because we don't see all the curb around the edge yet. So we're going to wait and see on that one. But, you know, we're starting to get a real picture of what's going on in regards to them working with geometry at the site.
Your last slide had a kind of a artist recreation of Göbekli Tepe, you know, with little humans next to these giant pillars, and it showed the wall. Yeah, right there. I wanted to ask you, because you've been up close to these T pillars, these giant T pillars go down, and it's like they're inserted into these wider rectangle bases. What's that look like up close?
Yeah, these are carved. I mean, these are carved from bedrock. So when they're carving out the kind of whole layering of the site, they're actually leaving these bedrock pedestals in
Hmm.
place. This is like a kind of tradition that we find across the whole Tas-Tepe region, but mainly actually at Göbekli Tepe we find that. And so that's really intriguing. And so there's a very shallow kind of socket that the big pillars in the middle two pillars are placed within. They're like very shallow. So something must have held them up. This is why there's been this hypothesis that there was a roof, although we don't necessarily agree with that. We think they may have been held up by, you know, packed terrazzo and things like this. They may have had sort of simple apparatus and whatever, because we're pretty clear. We believe that they were kind of you can actually see it here actually. So we believe they were observing the sky. So on the bottom right there, you actually see the enclosure D pedestal with the massive T pillar coming out from it. You can see it's a very shallow base. And so whether they were adjusting the orientation of these pillars to study the stars, or whether they did have a roof, although there's actually very little evidence of that, we really don't know. But it's one of the mysteries. It's like it doesn't quite make sense, because you expect them to be placed there and be balanced there perfectly. But when they finished up with the site, there was like a kind of natural slope slide that happened. But when they kind of decommissioned the site and buried it all over before they all vanished from the area, they placed everything, like especially these two central T-pillars, in position, and then packed everything around it and then buried it. So they didn't knock them over or destroy them like they did at Karahantepe. They actually preserved it, you know. And so it's hard to know exactly how exactly it would have looked in prehistoric times, but you have to kind of consider that there's still things we don't know, and hopefully the more excavation, if and when it does happen, will reveal more. The T pillars are separate. They're quarried from about half a mile away, but the bases are the bedrock. However, we're going to get onto Karahantepe soon, I hope. Actually, some of the T pillars there in the main enclosure along the bottom of the site are actually carved from bedrock. You know,
Right.
so we actually have a kind of that they actually were carving T pillars directly from the bedrock at Karahantepe, but none have been found at Göbekli Tepe that kind of have that going on. But yeah, there's a lot of bedrock shaping going on, a lot, especially at Karahantepe.
And remind us real quick, how tall are those biggest T pillars and how much do they weigh?
So the tallest one they've got is about 18 feet tall, which is 5.5 meters. Um, and that's going to weigh in excess of 15 tons, maybe 20 maximum, depending how thick they are. But there's one in the quarry, which is even taller and much heavier, weighing up to 50 tons, which is still embedded in the quarry, which is about half a mile away, which I had the good fortune to be able to go there in 2014. But after that, they kind of banned anyone from going there, and you can't go there since then. But I did manage to go there and take a look and get the appropriate research done while I was there. There's a similar example actually at Karahan Tepe on the western flank of the hill, where there's still an unfinished T pillar in the quarry. Again, the one there is about 18 feet tall. But some of the T pillars at Karahan Tepe are turning out to be pretty massive as well, as they are at Sayburch. And so, yeah, it's incredible. I mean, considering so little has been excavated in this whole region, it's incredible what has been found, in these early stages.
Yeah. Well, take us to Karahan Tepe and tell us about what you're seeing there lately.
Yeah, Karahan Tepe is becoming pretty epic, actually. I mean, I've been going there since before it was even excavated. There were just little tops of T pillars sticking out of the ground. This is actually the latest, very low res photo that I could get of the new area that's being excavated at the top of the hill, where this famous 7.5 foot statue and the vulture and the stone plates and the porthole stone were found a couple of years ago. This is the statue. It's on display in the museum now. But since then, they've actually now cleared away this entire top enclosure. Now, if people aren't sure what Karahantepe is, it's basically Göbekli Tepe's sister site. It's about 200 years younger, but 11,400 years old. And it's really most famous for the kind of pillar shrine or structure AB with the head sticking out of the side, as we can see here. But we'll come on to that shortly. But there's another big enclosure at the top of the hill, and this is it. This is the recent photo of it being excavated. Again, this has the giant statue in it. It's the same enclosure, but it's actually been cleared now. Now, as you can see here, it's pretty damaged, and this damage would have been done in prehistoric times. It wasn't done just recently. This was done a long, long time ago, and so these pillars were knocked over. They were kind of cracked open. Even the statue was broken in 3 or 4 parts. But you can see at the back there, around the edge, in the darker sort of shaded area, there's actually like a massive, massive bench carved out of the bedrock, like we find in the main enclosure at the bottom of the hill as well. And so that is really intriguing, that they were working into the bedrock so excessively, so beautifully as well. I mean, it's really quite something. When you look at what is going on here.
And what's the stone there? Is that limestone?
Yeah, it's all limestone. Yeah, it's all complete limestone kind of. It's called the Tek Mountains, where we have this, where Karahan Tepe is located.
Fascinating. Man, it's just crazy to see these photos and how it just seems like such a desolate area. And here is some of the greatest discoveries ever made.
Yeah, this is actually the main enclosure, the one that was excavated a couple of years ago. And I mean, this is pretty epic. This is like it's 70 feet wide, and then you see on the bottom part of it that it joins up with the pillar shrine or structure AB, with the kind of tail of like the serpent tail coming off it. And then, but at the base of the main enclosure, the bottom part of it, this is where they carved some of the T pillars from the bedrock. So it's pretty amazing, really. When you sort of think about what's been going on here.
Do you have a close up of the pit there with the serpentine head overhead?
Yeah, here we go.
Yeah, this enclosure to me is so amazing because this is the one carved out of bedrock. How they did that and how long that took is mind blowing.
Yeah, it's pretty amazing, really. I mean, this is also the winter solstice pit as well. This is where the light comes through the porthole stone on the left there, kind of comes through and hits the head, which is something myself and JJ Ainsworth discovered a few years ago, which was amazing experience just to sort of be involved in that. But just out of interest, you might want to look at these. These are like some reconstructions my friend Kevin Esslinger has been working on. I'm actually working with him to. It's a project we began a while back. We're still tinkering with it. We're going to try and rebuild Karahan Tepe as best as we can. This is a very early phase here, very early phase. We're experimenting with roofs as well. And we found that actually the light of the winter solstice would still come through, even if there were roofs. It would all, it all fits kind of perfectly. Which I've actually written about. I wrote a whole article about this, which is going to be featuring obviously in the new book. But yeah, but I think this is one of the most interesting parts of the site. It's so strange, I mean, who came up with the idea of it? Who came up with the idea of carving out, leaving these 11 pillars and then this other serpent shaped pillar, and then a head coming across the side with a porthole over one side, with the light would come through on the winter solstice to illuminate that. I mean, who came up with that? I mean, how do you even come up with that? This is what absolutely baffles me about Karahantepe. I mean, if this was like, a couple of thousand years old, it was found in, Egypt, people would be blown away by it. This is like 11,500 years old. That's the reality. This is what we're dealing with here.
And Hugh, do you imagine that 11,500 years ago, when this was in its original state, do you picture the ancients walking through this pit and, approaching the serpentine head? Or do
Yeah.
you think they were just, looking at it from the outside the circle?
No, I think so. I think so. We have a feeling. I mean, JJ and I have written about this actually. We've got a couple of articles up on Graham Hancock's website. We think it's well, certainly ceremonial because all these pits are joined together, with the main enclosure, and you can just about squeeze through that hole. But there are actually steps, very worn steps going down on two sides of that. It looks like it may be filled with water as well. That's one of the theories. It may have had a small roof over it, which would have enhanced the light experience on the winter solstice. But yeah, I think it's an initiation space. I think it's a ceremonial initiation space. Even it could even be a fertility, almost like a birthing chamber for the something based around the winter solstice and the different times of year. There's something odd, and I mean, this isn't a practical area. This wasn't used for anything useful or practical. This was like something very sacred to them, and I think I actually think the site was built around this because they were incorporating natural features and sort of enhancing them to create this kind of winter solstice aligned enclosure kind of pit.
Is there anything else you want to tell us about Karahantepe? Because I know I definitely want to ask you about this new pillar with the face on it.
Yeah, for sure. There's a couple of other things, but before we get to that, I want to mention this. When we were there just a little while ago, a couple of weeks ago, we found another pillar shrine, a small one, just being exposed. There's me and JJ there. We were blown away when we saw this. So this is like, something like 5 feet across, 4 feet across or something. And it's got, again, they've carved out from the bedrock a pillar coming up and moved all the bedrock away from it. There's a couple of other ones there that look like they've fallen over and broken as well. So there's like a mini pillar shrine, a mini structure AB has been found. And we really think that's important because you don't do that for no reason.
Right.
Again, I can't see any practical. Some people have suggested it's just for collect water, but why would you create the pillar inside? It just doesn't make any sense for water. So I think there's something about that we think it's very similar as well to like the idea of stalactites and stalagmites. And myself and Andrew visited Göbekli Cave recently in central Turkey, which is 16 or 17,000 years old, and that has it's this sacred area where this stalagmite or stalactite is coming up from the ground, and they've revered it and kind of seen that as some kind of fertility ritual space. And this is very similar. It's almost like a copy of that, like a kind of duplicate of that. And so we don't know if there's a connection there. Andrew's talked about it. Myself and JJ wrote about it a couple of years ago in one of the articles on Graham Hancock's website. But yeah, so that's one of the strange little discoveries. But there's a couple of other things that have turned up. We have some interesting carvings here. These are just ones that we spotted for the first time. There's three images there. The one in the middle is actually got a kind of critter coming down the front edge of the pillar. This is very similar to the famous one in Enclosure C at Göbekli Tepe, which I don't think I have an image of here, but it's the famous one with the kind of critter coming down the front,
Hmm.
beautifully carved. This is obviously much more this is much more worn, but still fascinating nonetheless. And on either side of that, you got two other stones, just with beautiful carvings on them, parts of animals or parts of symbolism. Really not sure. But for the nub lovers out there, this is one that we spotted. Actually, this is actually spotted this a while ago, about a year ago. But look, it's got like a nub on the front of it, the one on the
Oh
right
yeah.
there. Yeah, which is kind of cool. And then there's this new T pillar on the left. Look at the hands. Really interesting. So
Man.
you got the hands touching the navel, but the fingers join up into a multiple V situation, which is again unique. I've not seen it. I've not quite seen anything like that.
Were you able to count how many fingers are on that hand?
Oh, that's a good point. At the moment, I can only see five, but it needs to be checked. So there is one of the statues there does have 8 fingers on it, which is quite crazy. Um, yeah, but there's a few little things like this are kind of turning up at Karahan Tepe. I mean, I'll just put a video out about it today, actually, so people can check that out if they want to kind of have a proper look at that. Actually, this is the video here because there's a few other discoveries. Actually, the one in the middle there, that's actually was discovered a month or so ago, where they found this beautiful bowl within a bowl, and it had these little kind of mini porthole stones with animals jumping through them, which is very bizarre. As you can see, they almost look like mushrooms, but actually they're kind of small carved animals
Oh
placed
wow.
inside, going through portholes, the mini ones, in a bowl made of stone, on a plate made of stone, inside a larger bowl with 4 scepters. So this is pretty strange. This was found at Karahan Tepe as well. You can see more of it here, all the different animals. You've got a little vulture. You've got like possibly a leopard. You've got some other creature there.
Hmm.
And to me, this is like very, an offering. This is like a sacred. This is sort of depicting how they were working with these porthole stones in a
Yeah.
ritualistic way, potentially. So yeah, there's a lot of very bizarre, very interesting things coming out, and a lot more is going to be coming out, from this site and the others for sure.
Yeah, that bowl, what kind of it's greenish look colored. What's kind of stone is it?
Well, we don't know. They haven't put it. They haven't put much information about it yet. I think it's basalt. I think that the white ones are probably limestone, but they are known to have used lots of different types of stone from lots of different areas coming in from other parts of the country. So we don't know yet, but this is very similar to what we find. You notice the holes drilled through it as well, and it's actually similar to what we find at sites like Kortik Tepe, which are was 1,000 years older than Karahan Tepe up on the Tigris area to the northeast. So yeah, there's lots of lots of interest. And of course, we have the brand new discovery as well, which we could talk
I
about.
should say those stone donuts look exactly like real donuts.
They do, yeah. I mean,
It's
I
crazy.
don't think they represent them, D, but you never know. Maybe they were baking them back then.
I'm getting hungry. Okay, tell us about the big discovery of the T-pillared face.
Yeah, this is new. This is brand new. This is a photo of looking over the enclosure. You can just see it there in the middle left. So it's halfway up the hill, behind structure 8H, which is on the right there. And this is Neshmi Corral, the head archaeologist, and this gives you a sense of the size of it. It's not that big. It's only like a few feet tall, but this is potentially the first ever T pillar that's been found that actually has a face carved on it. Because everyone knows that these are anthropomorphic. We know that we've seen that with the hands and the arms coming down the side of them and the belts on them, things like this. We know they're based upon human forms, but always
Right.
the head has been blank. There's never been anything on them. But there is now evidence that they paint red, black, and white paint So they may have been painted on originally.
Hmm.
Whereas this one is the first one where they've actually got it where there's a carving on the face itself. And what's also interesting as well is it's got a very large forehead for starters, but if you look at it from different angles, you start
Oh
to
yeah.
see like different little things with it. Um, you see, is that a kind of Mohican, design? Is it extended at the front and the top? And you can also, and the Mohican motif has actually been used quite a lot at all these sites, so it's not dissimilar to what we find. Also, it's got no mouth. Well, it might have a mouth. There might be a little mouth there. It's hard to tell. But look at the shape of the actual eyes and nose. It's a T. It's a T shape. So,
Yeah.
we've got these T-shaped pillars, but it's actually got a T on the face. And so that's interesting. But you see that T face, that style of face on tons of other statues in the area, well, all of the sites, really, many of the sites. So it's not unique, but it is unique to find it on an actual T pillar itself. So there is a question mark over how old is this part of the site? Is it one of the later areas? Was it carved later? Did someone do it, as a kind of just a thing? Was it intentional when it was first created? We don't know. But it's kind of, I'll get into that in the little video I put together, look at some ideas about that, because I think it's like, it has to be addressed. There's like, this is one of the things that we may find more of. But I've got an idea as well that they may have actually, this might be a rarity, because as you've seen, tons of the T pillars at these sites are basically damaged. They're broken, and so there might have been a thing going on at the end of the era of this culture, where other people coming in, or people who were just changing their philosophies, would damage the heads of the T pillars to get rid of the faces, like you get in Egypt.
Hmm.
With like knocking the nose off the Sphinx and other statues, and defacing the faces. Because you kind of want to remove those people from having any power over you. And so it could have been a similar thing here. I mean, pure speculation. I've absolutely no idea if that's the case. But it's an interesting fact that many of the T pillars are damaged, and this is the only one we found with the T shape on it. Although you do have the Kalisic statue, you do have a couple of statues. There's one in Gaziantep Museum as well, which aren't T pillars as such. They're almost like T pillars. They're actually kind of statues, and they have faces on them, but they're not essentially T pillars that you would place in the ground. They're more like kind of just statues that would be separate from that.
I think the common thread with this statue, this pillar, I'm sorry, this T pillar with the face, the common thread with the 7-foot statue also at Karahantepe, the common thread with the little 3-foot one that was just discovered at Göbekli Tepe, they all have this similar humanoid look, don't they?
Yeah, yeah, they do. Yeah, yeah. I mean, I compared them in my video actually, because the big statue in the main enclosure, the top enclosure at Karahantepe, uh, it has a kind of Mohican as well, but he also has a very T-shaped face. If you actually look at his
Yeah.
eyebrows and the nose, it's quite similar. So yeah, I find that quite intriguing. Yeah, yeah, there are connections being found.
Yeah, they all have a humanoid look, and they seem to kind of have just, these strange features that the T-pillared face you just showed us had, almost an elongated skull, some might say, where it goes up. This statue is not only 7 feet tall, but it's got skinny arms and a weird shaped head in the back. Um, and then those T pillars have really skinny arms. That other one you showed us. So very interesting. And then there's the little statue you had some photos of recently in your Facebook page. It almost looks like a chimeric type character, half animal, half guy, with kind of a squared head. You know what I'm talking about?
Which one? Which one's that?
Maybe he was at Saybirch.
Oh yeah, yeah. There's quite a lot coming out of Saybirch as well. Yeah, yeah. Let me just see if I've got any. images of that. Yeah, you got the guy, you got the Saybirch man, you know, in the middle left there.
Yes, yes.
Yeah, that's on the kind of the main carved on the wall of the kind of bench of the main enclosure, carved out of bedrock. So yeah, so you got a lot of. I mean, these are some of the other human statues. Just to do a little comparison, you know, you got on the right there, far right. You've got the Karahan Tepe one we were just talking about. And I find it really intriguing. He's got like a little kind of beard, like a kind of almost like a Sphinx type Egyptian fake beard on him, which is also
Mhm.
a V-neck. And all three of those have got V-necks as well, which is a motif we keep finding. We've got the other one is Earth Man. It's got the black obsidian eyes. That was found in Chandlerf itself at a site called Geminhale, which is would have been a major Taztepala site, you know, but it's been mostly destroyed and built over. We've actually located it ourselves and investigated it, found evidence that they had T pillars there. There's cut marks, there's other things. They've actually built a hotel over the top of it, funnily enough. On the far left there, you've got another human head from Navali Chori. Now, the front of it's missing, it's been broken off. I mentioned the breaking off of the faces earlier, but it's got this serpent going down the back, very much like a Vedic priest ponytail. And that was found many years ago. And it seems to be this pattern of finding these human statues, because even at Saybirch, there's talk in with the people we know that a human statue has been found, a large one, and the head has been found, but the rest of the body they're still digging up. So it's a pattern that keeps happening at these sites. And yeah, while we're on the subject of Saybirch, this is obviously a very interesting site. This is the man again, carved into the bedrock around the edge there.
Oh yeah.
And this is what, this is basically what it looked like a few months ago. And this is kind of what it looks like now. They've actually cleared the whole thing out, and you got a full bedrock carved enclosure, which is weird as hell. It's got lots of strange features on it. I'm going to be writing about this and making a video on this soon, because it's just getting weirder the more you look. And then you can look at it from above. You can see all these other features. There's a good aerial shot I acquired off someone, and one of the things I noticed with this pretty quickly is that it has the geometry, the egg-shaped geometry, which kind of pleased me somewhat, because it sort of fits in with the other elements of my research. And yeah, so there's even here, there's lots of new discoveries that are coming out of the ground. There's a few more I could show you. Here's a couple of photos from one of the enclosures that's being excavated in the southern part of the site, which is over this area where the large red circle is. So these are really intriguing, and there's quite a lot coming out of the ground here. I mean, we're talking massive enclosure. We're not talking, small scale. I mean, you get a few small ones, but some of them are massive. You get giant U-shaped stones, like what's termed a dromos stone, which we find actually at the entranceways in the avenues at Göbekli Tepe. Some were discovered there. We have this very bizarre thing here. And this is intriguing actually, because you have this at Saybirch just next to the main enclosure, actually where the house is behind. That's gone now. It's been completely demolished. But you have, like, look at all this rock carving here. Now, I thought originally this was Taztepala era, but there's good evidence the Romans did this. So they were getting within like 20 feet of a major enclosure from Saybirch. But what I've circled there is actually this. It's actually this very odd shape, about 2.5 feet wide, kind of almost amoeba serpent head shaped thing, mushroom shaped. And I'm going back to this. I'm just convinced now that the Romans discovered the Taztepala culture. Absolutely convinced of it, because there's other Roman quarries very close to other Taztepala sites. And so I'm looking into that. I'm going to look into whatever I can to try and find evidence of that, because they left this amoeba-like carving just there. They cut right, they quarried right up to the edge of it, and then didn't quarry anymore. So what do you make of that? I mean, I can't quite get my head around it. I mean, you can see here. I mean, if you look at this image here, On the left there, you've got where the Roman quarry is, and
Okay.
then you've got the enclosure there, right next to it.
It's like they were almost honoring it and just saying, "Hey, we better not mess with the gods."
Maybe it could have been something like that. You know, it could have been warned off by locals. I mean, some people have suggested that quarrying is actually part of the Tas Tepela, because you look on the far right, on the right hand side there, you see another square cut out. That
Hmm.
is, they found actually bones in that. They found human, I think human and animal bones in that. So maybe it was part of the Tas Temple, and they were quarrying that for T pillars. I'm not sure, but there's good evidence that the Romans were right in this area, getting close up to these sites, and it just makes you question if there was, something else going on there that's been lost in history.
Well, I want to ask you about the sites around Lake Vaughan. You were there. What's the latest time you were there?
About just a few weeks ago, actually.
Just
Yeah.
yeah, just a few weeks ago. Yeah, and you posted some incredible photos of your visit around Lake Vaughan, especially what looks like some would say is a literal stargate cut into the mountain. And I'm gonna put these photos on the screen if you're watching on YouTube or Spotify. But this is fascinating. Tell us all about what looks like a portal or stargate on the edge of Lake Vaughan.
Yeah, this is called Meher Gate. This is Meher Gate. It's got 79 um Iratian deities carved into it. And there's several of these actually. This isn't the only one. There's several rock cut doorways to nowhere like this, and we don't know. We're not. I don't. I haven't really looked into it too much. It's something that Andrew and JJ have looked at all the symbolism of it. But this is like what you find at Marumuru in Peru. You find these doorways to nowhere in Egypt, in other places. And so to me, it's really intriguing. I mean, it is only a few hundred years BC, allegedly. Some people say there's much older dates going on in that area, but there's no clear evidence for that right as yet. But the Urartian culture, very intriguing. I mean, they seem to have been influenced by the Taztepela people, even though they were like 7,000, 8,000 years later. But there's a lot going on in that area, and those gates are really bizarre. I mean, they just sort of climb up to these most obscure places and just carve this beautiful doorway to nowhere. But we find similar things actually in central Turkey, not too far from Gedikaya Cave, actually, where we have cultures there doing similar things, carving these giant doorways that look even more like a Marumuru in Peru than the ones around Lake Van. And so there seems to be a kind of tradition of that kind of creating these doorways to nowhere in different parts of the world.
Yeah, I'm looking at the photo now and I'm zooming in on it. And there's at least one, two, three, four, five layers to, this embedded faux door, right? It's just again similar to what we see in Egypt and places. It also reminds me of the megalithic cave there in Peru that's like 5D Napa Iglesia.
Yeah.
How far is this this Stargate, as some would call it, how close is it actually to the water's edge?
I think it's a few miles away. It's not directly next to it. But Lake Van has had different levels over the millennia. To be honest with you, it's changed frequently. So yeah, so it's close, but not that close.
So, anything else in Turkey that's a must know about that you've seen lately or heard about?
I think we should mention the new excavations that are just beginning. This is exciting to us, and I think it's good for people to be aware of what's going on. I've got an image up here of Ayan Lahoyak. This is another Tastabula site, and this has been known about for several years, like 10 years, by Bahattin Selik, who's a local archaeologist. And so me and JJ went to investigate this like 3 years ago, and we looked around. And at the time, there'd been no reports of T pillars being found there. So myself, JJ, went around, and we found one just lying on the ground.
Mm.
Absolutely blew our minds, and so we, officially we discovered the first T pillar at Ayan Lahoyak. Now it's a giant project they're working on with the Japanese archaeological teams. the government of Turkey. They built fence around it and everything else. But we've been there a few times. We've investigated it. We've got to know the locals. This is where we got to see these artifacts that were collected by the locals from the site. But it's thought to be bigger than Göbekli Tepe and Karahan Tepe. In fact, it's a giant site. This could change everything. This is this has been. I mean, we've been predicting this for a long time, but I cannot quite believe they've just started the excavation there, and I don't think they realize what a job they got on their hands. Because you got like 6 or 7 mounds there. I think there's 6, and maybe a 7th one they haven't looked at yet. So it's not small. This is a giant-sized area. They've also started on a site called Yogenberg, which is just nearby, which we've investigated as well. There's also they're deep. They're already into the excavation at sites like Çakmak Tepe and Mendik Tepe, which are actually slightly older than all the other sites, but they don't have any T pillars. They're like a precursor to the main sites there. And so yeah, there's quite a lot quite a lot going on. I think it's going to just blow people's minds when it really gets going.
And so, based off what you've seen with these mounds, you're thinking this could be much bigger than Göbekli Tepe.
It's looking that way. Yeah, it's
Wow.
looking just for the scale of the site. Whether they excavate that much, we don't know. We'll just have to wait and see.
Man, so much to see and learn about in Turkey. Before we end this, I wanted to ask you about the latest discoveries in Mexico. You were doing lots of video and photos of this Olmec artifact that was recently discovered. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think that was found. I think it might have been late last year or early this year. This is, and it was just put on display. There was no fanfare, and it's this 4 or 5 foot wide block, and it looks very feminine. It looks like kind of yoni, with the way it's been shaped and carved with holes drilled through it, as though it was. To me, it's some kind of fertility statue. I think, and it was found in the town of Leventa. Basically, the site of Leventa stretches into the town. But when you visit, there's only a certain area you can actually look at. But actually, virtually the whole town was part of the site. And this goes back to 1400 BC. It's obviously an Olmec site. It's the only site that's still got an Olmec pyramid you can actually climb up. It's an earthen pyramid and clay. And yeah, I've been visiting Leventa for years. The first time I went to that area was in like 2003 or 2006 or something like that. And so I've been obsessed by the Olmecs for a long time. And so to see a brand new discovery emerge like that is very interesting, and it's a very bizarre piece. There's nothing quite like it in Mexico that I've seen. But also on display at that same, it's the on-site museum of the site. There's also a Leventa museum and outside museum in Villahermosa. There's also another museum in Villahermosa which has Leventa artifacts and heads and things like that. But this is the third site. This is the main site with the on-site museum. They've got 3 giant, what appear to be very badly worn sandstone Olmec heads, but we think that it's hard to tell if they're Olmec heads because they actually have smaller faces on them and bodies, but with wearing these giant Olmec helmets. So whether they were going to become them or they changed their mind and put arms and legs and small fat, I don't know. It's very confusing, but you can look at the images, look at the video, make up your own mind on that. But yeah, so there's some really interesting stuff coming out of Olmec land.
I'm looking at a photo right now of this artifact and the drill hole. I mean, although this thing has got to be very ancient and weathered, this drill hole looks precision.
It does, yeah. I noticed that as well. I mean, because we shone a light into it and got some clean kind of clean photographs of it, and yeah, it does. I mean, they really went to town on that. Yeah, I mean, but you look at some of the Olmec statues, and they are beautifully created, and many of them are from basalt as well. I mean, that looks like it's from limestone,
Yeah.
and these sandstone heads actually came from 100 kilometers away, like 70 miles away. But most of it's basalt. I mean, virtually every Olmec head and artifact statue is basalt, which is a really hard stone. And that had travel as well. They had to move that from the Tuxtla Mountains, which could be up to 100 miles away, to some Olmec sites.
Yeah, and the little photo you have that you took recently of the little Olmec figurines, it's like, a group of 10 of them together staring at each other.
Yeah.
Um, it looks like different stones. Some of it looks like they were basalt figurines, but are these like, what would you say, 2 or 3 inches tall?
No, they're about 6 to 7 inches tall, maybe 8.
Okay.
They're mainly jade and serpentine. There's one granite one in there, which I make a deal of in my video. And then you got these kind of what looks like scepters or celts or celts behind them. And they've
Hmm.
got little carvings on them as well. I mean, they're very similar to the actual basalt columns you find at the site as well. So I think it's a kind of ceremony or something important taking place that they memorialized at the site.
Yeah, but you look at the giant heads, and then you look at, these little figurines. Some of these figurines seem to be depicting very long, elongated skulls.
Yeah.
A couple of them look like, this is natural elongation with like 25% more cranial volume. What do you think?
There is, yeah, there's a lot of iconography that has that. Even the gigantic Olmec heads have flattened backs of the heads, which is a tradition we know of cranial deformation. But yeah, they found the skulls. If you go to Jalapa Museum, which is like west of Veracruz, north of Mexico City, you can actually see some skulls. I mean, I documented them previously. They're there, they're genuinely there. And not many bones and skulls are being found in Olmec sites because it's on the Gulf Coast. So it's very humid and most organic remains get disintegrated pretty quickly. But a few have survived, and they do have that there. I mean, you get that all over the country, though, going from before the time of the Olmecs up to the Aztecs, the Maya, Toltecs, everyone else. So it is a tradition for sure that seems to have been prevalent in Olmec land.
Olmec, what an enigma. Well, Hugh, this has been a great chat. Any final words you want to share before I ask you about where people can follow you and find your books?
Yeah, I just think it's like the time of discovery is taking place. At in southeast Turkey. It's really important, I think, and I think it's there's it's causing a lot of heated debate as well, and I think people need to kind of be aware of that. Don't just if you can just visit the sites if you can. Obviously, we take groups there as well, but even if you're going on your own, go and experience them over the next few years, because this is it. This is the time when you're going to be able to have a look at these sites before they get turned into like these massive visitor centers and everything else, sort of Disneyfied. So it's a really important time, and keep an eye on it, because it's going to become a bit kind of, people are going to get maybe a little bit tired of all the discoveries that are going to be made. But I think this is so important, because this era, what is being coming out of the ground is a massive missing chapter in human history, and we're at the cusp of it now, and we're finding out where we all came from, what this massive, this is Atlantean time. This is going back 10, 11, 12,000 years ago, and yet and no one knew about it. It got covered up and vanished, and then all these other cultures that came after it, going back thousands of years, didn't know anything about it either, apart from potentially the Romans, who we just spoke about, who may have discovered it initially. So, I think it's really, really intriguing. So I recommend people keep your eye on it. And I think we're going to be in for a lot more surprises. Some could be massive, massive revelations.
Man, you're getting us excited. I love how you just said we're basically going to get so tired of all the discoveries. This is
I think
this is great.
it's going to get to that. I think, yeah.
This is great. Well, tell everybody where they can follow you, find all of your books, and you've got some conferences coming up.
Sure thing. Yeah, we've got the Origins conference. This is our annual 1 day conference we're doing in Wiltshire, England, on the 1st of November. We've got some cool people coming. Like Robert Temple, obviously JJ will be there, myself and Andrew Collins, Debbie Cartwright. Professor David Jacks is doing amazing research on the 10,000-year-old discoveries found near Stonehenge. This is why we got him. He's brilliant. And we've got these guys. We've got the Egyptian, underground guys, Armando May and Filippo Biondi. So Armando's coming over. Filippo's joining us online. but we're going to be getting all the full updates from them. So yeah, so the Origins conference, and it's a live stream as well, so people can kind of connect that way. Obviously, hopefully I'm going to see you at the Quest for Ancient Civilizations conference as well. I want to big that up. There's a lot of hard work's being put into that by Mike Collins and his team. So yeah, I'd like to, promote that and mention that a bit more. I think that's really important. And obviously we go back out to many of these places. We're taking a group out there. Back to Turkey next May, like we always do. We always take groups out there during May, and we're going to Armenia as well to look at Karahan. But yeah, we do as we take groups out all over the place. We do our own expeditions, to various parts of the world, just like you do. And obviously my little book, if people want to check out, I kind of get a tiny little book you can put in your pocket to kind of, take with you to check out what's going on at Göbekli Tepe and Karahantepe, and look out for mine and JJ's book. We're going to have that out next year at some point. So yeah, that's going to be a bit more work to do on that, but yeah, let's see how that goes.
Awesome. Yeah, I highly recommend this book you're seeing on screen there, Göbekli Tepe and Karahantepe, the world's first megaliths. Great book. And what I love about those little books that Hugh writes is they're great to take on an airplane, throw them in your backpack. They're lightweight, and you're getting this great knowledge, and it's not too heavy as you're traveling. And definitely check out those conferences. If you're thinking about going to Turkey, nobody to go with better than Hugh and crew. So that was in May, you said?
In May, yeah, every May we head out there,
Right.
and in September we take groups there as well to different parts, different areas.
Well, Hugh, thanks so much for your time, man, and maybe I'll see you in December.
Thanks so much, Dee. Appreciate it.